So does everyone remember Biden's famine in Afghanistan? Joe Biden has been intentionally causing a famine in Afghanistan. Most people have been pointing to the US freezing of Afghan central bank funds as the reason for this, and that is a big reason. But another thing is that after the Taliban took over the government of Afghanistan, these old sanctions against them kicked in, and since the Taliban are the government of Afghanistan, obviously that means that Afghanistan as a whole is now under US sanctions. And because of this combination of factors of which Joe Biden could immediately stop all of this with the stroke of a pen, and the EU as well, who are also contributing to this, could just stop it all with the stroke of a pen. Because of that, Afghans are going to starve. They're already starving. Not going to, they are literally already starving. This article is from yesterday. The families losing their loved ones to hunger, suicide in Afghanistan. As more than half of Afghanistan's population face hunger, some parents have lost hope. This is Joe Biden's famine. Joe Biden is the one who is maintaining these sanctions, and he's the one who has Afghan central bank funds frozen. He could change that with the stroke of a couple of pens. Same with the EU, who have the same sanctions maintained on Afghanistan. Now, this is pretty much the most pressing issue and also the most easily solved issue in the world today, at least of significance. This is bigger than Ukraine. Ukraine is bigger, but not as like an isolated war. Like as an event, obviously it's terrible what's going on there with the invasion and everything. It's worse than this potentially only because of the wider implications of like a possible confrontation.
If you don't trust the CIA, then who do you trust?
Between nuclear powers. But in terms of like consequences for human beings, human suffering, this is already worse. As many as like 20 million people are in danger of starvation. 20 fucking million. Putin could like literally try to genocide all Ukrainians to the best of his ability, and he wouldn't be able to kill 20 million of them. But Joe Biden and his European friends are gonna kill or possibly kill 20 million Afghans. Maybe not kill. Let's say he kills 2 million. That's still far more than Putin could do in Ukraine in any reasonable, even in 10 times the time. Like, this is abhorrent and no one's talking about it. Very few people are talking about it. They have a lot of time for Ukraine, none for this, regardless of how much worse it is and how much more terrible it is for human beings. Because why? Well, because the US and the EU are the perpetrator. So let's read the article. People are dying by suicide across Afghanistan because of starvation, as the US has frozen the Afghan central bank's assets and the IMF suspended access to funds after the Taliban takeover. The World Bank also halted funding for the country, though it has now approved a package of $1 billion to address the population's urgent needs. Look, the problem with Afghanistan is just the economy in general. You don't solve the issue by giving them a one-off payment to buy food, because that food's gonna fucking run out. They need to be able to become self-sufficient, and the problem is the general sanctions and the seizing of assets, which makes that impossible. More than half the population, around 23 million Afghans, are suffering from hunger. Millions of dollars in lost income after the collapse of the government, soaring food prices, a liquidity crisis, and shortage of cash have deprived much of the population of access to food, water, shelter, and healthcare. There's no shortages here. Well, there are certainly some shortages of cash, as it says, but it's not like this is not like a crop failure or anything. And it's not like there's not enough food. It's that people can't afford it. Just general economic activities, depression caused by the sanctions and stuff is the reason for that. So an Afghan historian says Afghanistan faces the worst hunger in the world, and starvation compels numerous people to commit suicides every day. The current suicides of famine in Afghanistan is unprecedented, and we cannot get the example of such a large suicide in Afghanistan in history. Millions lost their lives in the 4 decades of constant war in Afghanistan, but hunger will massacre more Afghans than war in the near future. Yeah, that's true. Joe Biden and his European friends are going to kill more Afghans in the space of like a year than a 20-year-long
If you don't trust the CIA, then who do you trust?
And war did. And if anyone like pretends to give a fucking shit about Ukraine and everything else, yet they never
Communism is based.
Not even a second to talk about this. It's obvious why. But give me a fucking break.